Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. Photography for me, I've kind of used it as therapy during COVID. Um, I'll give you a little bit of background about myself. I'm a traditionally trained graphic designer that became an art director that moved on to motion graphics. Then I became an editor, and that's the majority of my career is doing television programming and corporate films, as well as live shows and that kind of thing. But during COVID, that kind of all dried up. So I had all this camera gear sitting around, as one does. And then I picked that up and I used that camera to satiate my wanderlust primarily because we weren't traveling anywhere. So I I traveled around Hong Kong. There was astonishingly a load of places I hadn't been in Hong Kong. Having lived here for 30 plus years, I found that quite incredible that there was so much of the territory I hadn't explored. So yeah, I picked up the camera and I began to explore these places, and therein lies my beginning falling in love with photography. Basically, what does it mean to me? It's my therapy. Yeah.
Nice. Dickie, so is it Dickie Suzuki? That's your name?
So Dickie Suzuki is my moniker that I use for my photography.
Okay.
Dickie Fowler is my real name.
Okay.
That's what I use for my professional career. But photography, I try and keep it to Suzuki. My wife's
Okay.
Japanese. I have two sons. They're both Japanese. Hence the Suzuki part.
I love it. I love it. Okay, so Dickie Suzuki, thank you for joining me on the podcast. I don't know if you notice this or not, but the main sort of question is, if life really is a gift, how do we make every second count? I say to you, send me 4 photos, and that is going to kind of shape a journey or a roller coaster or whatever across your life. And by talking about your photos, we're going to learn, what's important to you, how you see the world, and it's always this really fun discovery because everybody sees the world differently. And as somebody who is a photographer, you have spent time thinking about how you see and how you communicate. And so I haven't looked at your photos. I know nothing about your art, but I can tell already that it's going to be good. Oh, wow.
So start with Bicycle Man.
Yes. Okay. So because people are listening, I have to explain what I say. And this is like, I'm looking at it first. So first of all, dude, you know how to make amazing photographs. That is incredible. Okay. So it's a man working on a small bicycle wheel. He's balding a little bit. He's not wearing a shirt. It's just rained. And there's a single fluorescent tube of light, maybe, I don't know, 3 meters above his head. So let's say 10, 15 feet above his head. And he's surrounded by fans, by blades, by metal. And so this is it's almost like a cinematographic still in this full-on futuristic almost kind of like Blade Runner-esque scene. But here's this guy, it's night, he's working on this flat tire, it's kind of streaming down, and he's surrounded by this really intense greenish, everything's kind of greenish except for his skin and the lights in the background, which are beautifully orange. I mean, this is such a great shot. Okay, so what is this?
Okay, so This is which I romantically call Bicycle Man. I try and keep my titles quite self-explanatory. I don't want a title to deter the viewer's point of view. But this photograph encapsulates me 100%. It shows my love for Hong Kong, and it shows a lot of my influences growing up. Yeah, but predominantly it's my love for Hong Kong is encapsulated in this photograph. I do believe that Hong Kong is built upon the blood, sweat, and tears of its inhabitants.
Hmm.
It's the local population that drive the engine of Hong Kong, and make it its vibrant cacophony, if you will, of textures and colors and thoughts and heritage, and all of those things really make Hong Kong the cinematic universe that it is.
Hmm.
It's no wonder that films such as you mentioned, Blade Runner, Ghost in the Shell, and all those cyberpunk zeotropes basically are encapsulated in this city. If you care to even take it on face value, you know.
Yeah.
Go on, you were going to ask something.
I was just going to quickly say if people want to see these photos, they're on YouTube, they're on the website, they're around, and they have to be seen because you're a great photographer.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I like to go out when it's raining. Again, trying to capture that cyberpunk theme. Basically,
Hmm.
I love the wet streets reflecting the lights and giving it all that dystopian kind of atmosphere.
Hmm.
That's where I'm kind of going with it,
Yeah.
to be
So to
honest.
be nerd is to be nerdy. What kind of cameras are you shooting with?
So I use a Sony A7 Mark III. I have one lens. I use a 24 to 70 zoom,
Nice.
and that is it basically. That is my camera. I have it sitting next to me right now, and it's looking rather beaten up, to be
Aw.
honest.
So I have that camera. I have that camera. It's full frame. It's look. Wouldn't it be great if Sony were to sponsor the show, sponsor your episode for sure? And it's a full frame, and so within that dimension, the
Yeah,
24 to 70 zoom, such a great lens.
yeah,
24 to me is like proper wide. Like, some people use 28, and I think no, like 24, 21, 24 really gives you that kind of openness. And your photograph brings out the biggest nerd in me because the color range of the metal and the street and the light from the fluorescent tube makes it all green, and
yeah,
yet in the fan blades and in his skin and in the reflection on the bike, and then in the background there could be a bakery or something, and there's also a lantern and also a bird cage that are kind of browns and oranges. It's like it's it's one of these like beautifully, like, because some things with photographs, because it's so instantaneous and quick and easy, not many photographers out there will play with color or notice these sorts of levels. And
right.
you definitely do. I mean, is there a lot of post-production on this thing?
I'm not one of those guys that are puritanical about his photography. I'm out there to make an image that's reflecting what my point of view.
Yep, yep.
So I put my hand up. I'm a heavy Lightroom user.
Hmm. So what yeah, it works.
There's too many colors often on Hong Kong streets.
Mm.
I want to kind of bring the color palette down to a less noisy
Hmm.
whole, to something that's a bit more homogeneous,
Hmm.
if you will, so that you can then pick out the focal point of the shot, if you will,
Yep,
and
yep.
as well as other points of interest. One of my favorite things to shoot is fluorescent lighting.
Right.
Again, it harks back to that dystopian. That's the only light bulb that can be around at this point when we've reached the apocalypse, kind of storytelling.
So where did you come from before Hong Kong? Where were you living? Where was home?
Yeah, so UK born and bred, but arrived in Hong Kong when I was 19,
Oh
and
wow.
then started work from there.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing. And then in terms of your creative and artistic, I mean, because you say you worked as an art director and you worked within, I mean, you clearly have a point of view and a perspective and training. And so, like, how much of your training is just from doing over time? And how much of it was the shortcut of
yeah.
going to classes and all that stuff?
What photography you mean? Well, I went to art college, which was a basic diploma course, so I dabbled in a little bit of everything. Then, I went straight into corporate branding design as soon as I arrived in Hong Kong, and that showed me the corporate world. And then off
Mm.
into the more boutique graphic design and photography film studios. So
Hmm.
that's basically all encompassing my training per se. Everything else has kind of been self taught, especially computers. I was there from the beginning.
Hmm.
That makes me feel quite old.
Yep, yep.
Um,
Were you working in one of the big advertising agencies, or were you working in like a smaller boutique or more in house?
so as soon as I landed at the age of 19, a year out of art college, I landed a job at Landor Associates in Hong Kong, which was, arguably the biggest design agency in the world, working on accounts ranging from airline liveries to cigarette packet design.
Hmm.
So yeah, but I didn't last long in that world. The corporate world is not something I enjoy too much.
Sure,
So then
sure.
hopped and skipped and crowbarred my way into the local boutique design agency run by a photographer and a film director.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, let's say goodbye to this stunning photo, which people have to check out. Yeah,
yeah.
I love how I'll bring or I'll get creatives onto the show, and I see images that I've just never seen before, and this is fantastic. So let's go on to the second photo.
Okay, so again, this is a dystopian point of view of Hong Kong, and showing people how beautiful this city is, even though you're
Hmm.
looking at something that's potentially controversial,
Right.
overlooked.
What's interesting to me is that you are playing a lot with light and darkness, right? So this is shot at night. There's a man, you
Yeah,
don't see his face. He's kind of, his shoulders and his arm are kind of turned red by a red light overhead. He's exiting a kind of
yeah.
a 60-year-old building. There's the kind of sign that could be, I don't know if this is like I don't know, like a brothel, could be in Mongkok. Not really sure. It looks
It's
kind of
definitely a
dodgy.
brothel.
Oh, it's definitely a brothel. Okay,
Mm.
so it looks kind of dodgy, but the light is very soft. So there's the reds, there's the green of the interior fluorescent lighting. Yeah, so this you're photographing, and it's only one person, right? So it's this lone person
Yeah.
in a part of town that is probably filled with lots of people. So yeah, so why is this image so important to your body of work?
Again, it's something I'm trying to show people how beautifully dystopian this city is. This is a potentially controversial image found in the back alleyways of Mongkok.
Mm-hmm.
But originally I shot this doorway without the person in it,
Mm-hmm.
which has been proven successful. So I kept going back, looking to tell more of a story.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, I was enraptured, if if that's the right word, by the tones of light going down the corridor.
Yeah,
Basically,
yeah.
you got your red light at the doorway throwing a big red glow around the opening, and
Mm-hmm.
then further down the corridor, you've got a cooler light
Yeah.
throwing a greenish blue light. So the combination of the two gives you a whole kaleidoscope of colors traversing that corridor.
Mm-hmm.
So that was initially why I picked up on it, and of course, the salaciousness of it being a brothel
Mm.
is something I like to explore. You know, prostitution in Hong Kong is legal
Yeah.
as long as you're a single person in a single room. Of course, the problem there is it's all run by the underworld, so
Yeah.
these people are taken advantage of.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that whole backstory as well going on behind this image.
Yeah, there's definitely something. You're definitely capturing a side of the glitzy, well-known side of Hong Kong, which is the banking and finance and the central business district and all this stuff. Now, this image isn't really salacious. Like it's basically a guy walking through a hallway at night. You don't see his face. He seems now, he doesn't seem especially hurried, but he's kind of he's on his way out, and he's exiting the building.
Yeah,
Um,
you could say that he's a customer leaving said establishment.
mhm,
Well, that's the kind of story that comes up in my mind. Hence,
right,
why I I hid any kind of identifying features on the individual.
sure. So for somebody listening to this from not in Hong Kong, who has no frame of reference, right? So why don't you
Yeah.
situate where this is? Like, where is this, and how does it sit within the idea or the reputation of Hong Kong, the big crazy city?
Every city has its underworld. Of course, there's the glam and glitz of the facades of Central and Tim Sa Tsui. But these cities again are run by the individuals that make up that fabric of the city.
Mm-hmm.
It's all those facades and glitz and glamour that you see on face value are a tiny percentage of what makes this city tick.
Yeah.
So if you want to take the other end of the spectrum, which is potentially the underworld, if you will, there's plenty of things to be exploring in that storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And it again, the fabric of the city is not all that glitzy glamour that you see on the waterfront.
Mm-hmm.
The majority of people are hardworking individuals that make something out of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is a beautiful example of that, albeit somewhat dystopian.
Right. So I've got to ask a question.
Yeah,
Like, in a sense, like, how are you using the photographs? Like, are you using them for editorial purposes to kind of capture and write a story, or are you mostly looking at it through like an aesthetic sort of thing of either to shock a viewer, like in a gallery, or yeah, like set up. Why don't you set up how you're using these photographs so a listener can either
yeah,
find out about them or see like what how do your photographs live beyond your computer?
right. So I'm fashioning myself into an artist. I believe I'm getting there. But an image like this, I want it to grab attention on its face value, but then I want viewers to take a deeper dive into the imagery. If they take the time to understand what's going on in that image, they'll find many different storylines going throughout.
Mm,
Um, Again, you go back to Bicycle Man. It's that hardworking guy in the middle of a typhoon, still busting his ass because he
mm-hmm.
has to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise he's not going to be able to eat properly. It's the
Right.
same sort of story with a very cheap. brothel in a back alleyway in Mongkok. Mongkok
Right.
being, one of the most heavily densely populated places on the planet. But again, it's not all the glitz and glamour of the facades. It's what happens in the back alleyways
Mm-hmm.
and to the average person. So, someone sees it in the gallery, they need to understand what they're looking at.
Yeah.
This is a single person brothel, potentially with a customer leaving, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
stunningly beautiful on face value.
I mean, it's almost religious in its sort of in terms of the tones, in terms of the softness, in terms of the light and dark, and
Yeah,
I'd take my dogs when we'd have 24-hour vet needs, right? Like if a dog needed to see a vet, the only vet that was open was in Mongkok. And so, you drive out there
right.
at 1 a.m, you park the car, and then as you walk your sick dog down the street, up the stairs, it's like you're passing like entranceway after entranceway of these brothel areas, and it's
Yeah,
like, okay, it's just part of life out there. Yeah, it's an interesting juxtaposition.
yeah.
Right.
I like showing the brothel against the contemporary, modern,
Right.
gentrified streets, but
Hmm.
still upstairs there's a brothel. The values here are very wide.
Right. Well, they're fulfilling a service. They're
Yeah.
fulfilling a service. So, like, in terms of, let's go back to how you use your photographs. Like, are you showing them in a gallery, or like how are they? Do they live as prints? Do they only live on a screen? Like, how do you put them into the world?
So predominantly, I sell my prints at gallery shows, charity events, and those kind of things. I'm actually gearing up for a gallery show next month, but more
Nice.
about that later.
Okay.
I produce prints on metal plate, which is a product called Chromolux,
I love that.
which is perfect for Hong Kong walls. If you've ever tried to hang a piece of paper artwork up in Hong Kong, you soon find it's gone all wrinkly and mouldy and started to slip inside the frame and all
Mm-hmm.
of these kind of things. Hence why I use an industrial product, this Chromolux product, which makes it look super glossy and it
Mm-hmm.
has the added advantage of being waterproof, scratch resistant, flame retardant even, and UV resistant.
That's great. It's great. I love it.
Yeah, all of those things make for a good product in my mind that's going to stay fresh for the next 50 years. Yeah.
Right. Dickie Suzuki is going to stay fresh for 50 years. All right. I love it. Okay, so photo 3 by Dickie Suzuki is a shot of an arcade that looks kind of old. The ground is cobblestone, so it looks like it faces the street. The light, again, is from a fluorescent tube, so it's very cold. There are
Yeah.
three arcade units, like, the shot is of three arcade units, the faces facing the photographer. Hard to know what the
Yeah.
arcades are. They look kind of like that Japanese style of where there's the claw that picks stuff up for people to win
Yeah.
plush
They're definitely
toys or
claw
whatever.
machines. Yeah.
Right. What I love about your photos is that there's a lot of darkness, a lot of vivid colors. So go ahead. What's this?
So it's a grab machine and it's facing an alleyway in Yuen Long. Again, it caught my eye for its dystopian values, its color saturation, and I like the patina on it as well. That you'll see a common theme throughout my photography. Again, it's the fluorescent lighting, it's the
Mm-hmm.
saturated color palettes, but it's also a cacophony of textures and layers inside my frames. So this one, it's a little bit dystopian because you can see it's a grab machine. So obviously it takes coins, but you're going to get little or in my point of view, not much of a reward. The cabinet on the left is cup noodles. You got your gacha balls in the middle, and then you got your cheap stuffed toys on the right. You
Hmm.
know, how many coins do you have to put in there to get a piece of tat? You
Hmm.
know, and then you can look closer and see all the security cameras around it that
Yep.
are the security point of view, as well as Big Brother always watching.
Hmm.
But it's really a texture play and a social commentary that I like about this.
Hmm. And like I was once in Mongkok, and it was like
Yeah,
morning, and I was taking my daughter, and that we were walking by one of these places, and they had like 20 of these machines, and there was this one
yeah,
guy with a bag full of coins, and he was just again and again and again just kind of playing this game, and then
yeah.
he was collecting the prizes, which I think he was going to resell. So it's like this really
Right.
strange side hustle. Yeah, it's very bizarre, it's very peculiar.
I doubt it was a side hustle because you could actually go into certain arcades and just buy them off the rack,
Oh,
and these plushes and these prizes are not something that are worth any money, in my
yeah,
opinion,
I agree.
especially not in the resale market.
Mm,
Not unless there's a unique item in there, is a collector's piece or something along those lines.
hmm.
Could it be lucrative? But I see it's more of a gaming addiction.
Right.
It's like the arcades in Hong Kong are full of these old gaming machines, but it's illegal to gamble here outside of the jockey club.
Hmm.
So you go in there and you put your coins in, and you're playing slot machines, you're playing other machines where you're just accumulating numbers.
Hmm.
So there's nothing gained from it financially. It's just a fun waste of time.
Right, right. So
Yeah,
okay, so let's talk about fun wastes of time. You come to Hong Kong. What was the
yeah.
draw? Like, why Hong Kong of every place on earth? Why here?
Um, I was going through art college, I was exposed to Orientalism, if you will,
Hmm.
and all that design cacophony of the best design in the world in my opinion, ranging from you got your Japanese kaiju's to some of the most beautiful design ever produced, whether it be woodwork, fabric design, costume design, you name it. I think this part of the world has a unique take
Hmm.
on that, and so that was the draw, basically, as well as not discounting the Blade Runner aspect of it all. Oh wow, that's super exotic. I'm going
Hmm.
over there.
Hmm.
I thought I was on my way to Japan. I never quite made it that far.
Right. So one of the interesting, because I've met a lot of people like you, who've come
Yeah,
here and as photographers, like one guy, he just has a kind of, in comparison to like the serious professional kits, he has like I don't remember what it was like a Canon 5 or something. It was like not a 5D. It was like a small compact. And he was
yeah,
walking down the street, and he made a really nice photo of the streetcars, and he was just, and he happened to work in an ad agency, and then they said,
yeah,
wow, that photograph is so perfect that they used it for billboard size, like campaigns. It was just, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like a dream come true, right? He got like tens of thousands of dollars for it. And it was just like a snapshot. So,
yeah,
given your time in this fantastic, very photographable city, do you have a story like that where
yeah.
one of your photos just had its own little life that just completely blew you away?
I I hadn't sold any of my work for commercial purposes. I'm not so sure my work would lend itself to that. Yeah, I've been commissioned a few times to go and shoot in my style,
Hmm.
but that's dictated on my terms. You know,
Right.
it was a fashion shoot that I did for a New York brand, and they said, "We give you carte blanche. We want it in your style. Here's the clothes. Off you go."
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, right. I put these guys or the talent in these kind of environments, and there you go.
And how did that campaign go?
They're still releasing it. It's called Legacy of Resilience. It's out of New York, and they've only released what 4 or 5 shots thus far, and
Wow.
you can find them on Instagram.
I don't know. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to shoot. You know, a single day, I must have shot 800 shots,
Nice.
12 different locations.
Excellent. Excellent. So, okay.
Yeah.
So, so do you have a website? Do you have a place where people can see all your work?
Yeah, I show my work on Instagram primarily. It's all Dickie Suzuki, Dickie Suzuki, or you can go to dickiesuzuki.com again, where I showcase my work.
The links will be in the show notes for sure. Dickie, this is fantastic. Do you want to say anything else about this third photo, or do you want to move on to the next picture?
No, I just love it. I don't have much of a backstory behind it. It's just one of those images that I was compelled to photograph.
Hmm. Hmm. So, but okay, so here's okay. I tend to be a navel gazer. I tend to kind of want to find out like what more, like what else is there. And sometimes in these interviews or in these conversations, people realize things about. It's like, oh, wait a second. So if we were to do that, if we were to sort of look at this image as a kind of reflection of who you are as a person, right? Like why you would
Yeah,
stop in front of them, why you would, respond to that. What do you think? What is going on behind the photographs that communicates something about who you are and your motives?
hmm, that's a tricky one. You're trying to get me to psychoanalyze my photography, and it's not something I do only on retrospect, and so I'm going to have a go.
Okay.
Um, so it's playful in nature. It's it's certainly photogenic. There's no denying that, in my opinion. Again, it's that those layers of storytelling there. If you're willing to take the deep dive and try and post examine this,
Mm-hmm.
you could easily look at. I went to see Blade Runner when I was 15 years old. I spent a lot of time playing arcade games in the arcades in the 80s. All of those things, as well as the whole Asian Orientalism aspect of these design tropes that are present in this photograph. It's all there to me,
Mm-hmm.
but it's playfulness primarily. Playfulness, but
Yeah.
aesthetically pleasing.
So one of the things I would say about the work is that, there is a playfulness, but you're not doing visual puns. Like some people are playful in their photographs and it's more like hamming it up. Like for example, having faces of people doing strange expressions or whatever. It's not like that. It's more like here, I'm looking at this photo of the arcade. It's absurd, right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's basically a place where people go to kill time in a very kind of low level way, put in a
yeah,
few dollars or whatever, and then just do a little game of skill, and then it's over within 30 seconds, and do it again and do it again for a
yeah.
payoff that might be actually quite cheap. But there's something, I don't know if I'd use the word witty, but there's something playful for sure, where you're just kind of like saying, well, look at this.
Yeah, and you could use the word witty. I would accept that, But yeah, back to your original part of that conversation, where it's a lot of photographers are doing those kind of juxtapositions where you've got, a bush growing out of a wall with a person walking just at the right moment, so it looks like the bush is growing out of their heads. That's not my kind of
Hmm.
photography. One, I don't
Right.
have the patience for it, and two, it's not what I'm looking for. I want something that goes deeper than face value. You know,
Yeah.
it can be initially arresting, but then if you take the time to dissect it, there's a lot more going on, in my opinion.
But I love the fact that you're also doing something. I don't want to call you a stranger in a strange land because you've lived here for so long. You're not you're not a stranger, but you are providing,
No.
like you're projecting, like you're noticing for people who maybe have never been out here things that are quite unusual. The guy leaving
Yeah.
like a bordello or whatever, so he's just had his little hour of pleasure, and there's these kind of slinking away, and is it depressing, is it offensive, is it controversial? But maybe it's just the guy who's just getting his pleasure switches flicked. I don't know.
It's all of those. I want all of those questions to come up when you're looking at a piece. I don't take it on just on face value. You got to ask the questions: why, what was going on,
Hmm.
why is this happening? Why is it lit this way? Why again, all of those questions come up in my mind. And you're right, I
Yep.
do want to showcase the dystopian beauty of this part of the world to people that have not experienced it.
Hmm.
Even the younger generation of Hong Kong look at my work and go, "I never thought of it like that," which brings
Mm.
me great joy. Actually, there's a couple of my
Nice.
pieces that I go even deeper into the storytelling, pulling on history tropes and all these kind of things, and I'm educating young locals that just haven't noticed that before about their city.
Yeah.
And Hong Kong is my muse. I'll always love this city. It's such a beautiful place
Oh,
to
listen to
photograph.
you.
Well, to share that,
Now, for this photo is a photo. Now, I don't know. It looks like a very close crop photo of a mini temple, and the lighting is really
yeah,
beautiful, and it's caught a Buddhist sort of figure. And the Buddhist figure is in green, with hands together at sort of chest level, heart center, if you will. The face is like mix between Asian, Nepalese with a headdress. There's a lot of red. The clothing is a lot of blue. There's a bit of a lotus flower, but it's and there are a couple of like babies at the arms or elbows of this figurine. Traditional
yeah.
Buddhist statuette. Yeah. So what's this?
Okay, so this is one of the images that I'll be showing next month in my gallery show called Art of the Celestials, in which I want to showcase basically the oldest structures in town are the temples. They've been there for hundreds of years, if not a little bit longer. So that being said, they're the longest surviving structures in this town that reinvents it every 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to find I like telling stories again, especially about heritage. So I wanted to reframe the gods and goddesses that you find in temples, in the roadside kind of abandoned structures, and impromptu kind of shrines that people put up because
Mm-hmm.
they're terrified of throwing these deities or statues of deities away because it's considered bad luck. So impromptu
Mm-hmm.
shrines pop up here and there, which is a collection of these deities that have been carefully deposited rather than thrown away.
Yeah.
This one in particular is probably Guan Yu, which is a local deity which is famous across China and probably most of Asia. A benevolent goddess who's the goddess of mercy and compassion, hence the two children. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so many religious kind of motifs within these statues that I like to showcase and reinterpret,
Hmm.
give them a more contemporary kind of a beauty. I want to take beautiful shots of these deities because they are often
Hmm.
overlooked and thought of as chintzy kind of stuff that your grandmother prays to on every week.
Yeah. So I really like how the lighting is especially soft. The top of the photo is there's
Yeah,
a lot of darkness. There's a lot of darkness in your image, but the top of the photo is really punctuated by these really deep, rich reds, right? And then the bottom
yeah,
is kind of like glowing with this turquoise, bluish, white. So it's like a really beautiful kind of shaping with color, which tells me like speaks so
yeah.
loudly as to your training and your aesthetic. So how many images like this in your show?
I'm aiming for 30 plus. I'm only
Wow.
halfway there at the moment, and time's running out. So I can confidently say there's going to be 30, and I've got them all framed up on the Chromolux in recycled wooden
Mm,
frames to
nice.
emphasize that texture. So, can I talk a little bit more about where this shot was made?
Yes, please. Please do.
Um, where was it? It was Chunwan, I believe, in a temple up the hill, but it wasn't the main temple. It again was one of these little side kind of shrines where people are disposing of their deities, or not disposing, but carefully placing them and
Mhm.
grouping them, and they become impromptu shrines.
Mhm.
Now, I believe that one guy has collected these deities, these blue and white porcelain figures, hence why the color palette is like this. But
Mhm.
he's cemented them into place, so people don't steal them. I don't know why he cemented
Okay.
them there, but there's a really famous one called for the Sky Full of Buddhas out in Pok Fulam, which
Mhm.
has 10,000 of these statues along the waterfront. It's a sight to
Mhm.
behold.
Wow.
I recommend anyone to go and see that. But this particular individual had cemented all these statues in place, but then he'd splashed red paint all over them.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know why he did that, but it certainly caught my eye. You see in the background, there's red paint almost
Yeah.
across the entirety of the statue.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
very crude application of this paint. You can see the
Right.
paint running down a face and across a chest. Why he did that is a mystery to me.
Hmm.
But wow, what textures it brought out, and as well as all the storytelling that's going on with the religious nature of
Yeah.
the statue. Yeah, I find it incredible.
Do you think this particular show will also be available online?
I've got some pieces. If you visit dickiesuzuki.com, you can see quite a few of these pieces already up online.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so in terms of your craft and your style, I mean, have you shot outside of Hong Kong, or do you normally shoot within Hong Kong? Because obviously Hong Kong is more than enough to kind of catch your eye.
Absolutely. I am keen to go and shoot some more, but it reminds me of that Bruce Lee quote where he's not frightened of a man got 10,000 different ways of attacking you. He's frightened of the guy that's practiced one thing 10,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
So, hence why I keep going back to Hong Kong. I know Hong Kong is a beautiful palette. It's going to last a lifetime of exploration, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I would love to go and shoot Japan and all its, vending machines. That would be terrific. But fundamentally, my heritage is in Hong Kong. I understand the stories that are here, so that I can pick out these storylines found on the street that people are overlooking
Mm-hmm.
because I know
Mm-hmm.
the background behind it. and that's what I'm trying to bring forth is that storytelling.
Right. So how just to give me a sense of scale, how large do you print?
So some of my largest pieces, like the kaleidoscopic doorway, I sold one last year that was 48 inches high.
Mm-hmm.
So 48 inches by 36.
Okay.
That's nearly a couple of meters tall,
Yeah, yeah.
nearly life size almost.
Yeah. Amazing.
So I
Amazing.
do enjoy the scale. Imagine this particular image at a scale. You're going to see a lot more of the detail.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Well, so I guess Dickie, you've got another. The floor is yours. What else would you like to sort of put in the world about, like how does because the idea that taking a camera out into the world to photograph and to capture and share or inspire others isn't for everyone, but in your experience and in your world in your life, this is a powerful way of expressing, right? What's core to who you are. Do you want to talk about
Yeah.
about that, like in terms of how that either scratches an itch or helps you fulfill a certain mission or whatever, or personal drive to kind of express yourself?
It goes back to the original statement that I made. It's a kind of therapy, and again, I enjoy telling these stories. It's something that I can educate people about just because of my innate knowledge of just being here that long and understanding the traditions, the folklore, and all of these kind of hidden aspects of society that people would not be aware of predominantly because it's not in your face. you know
Mm-hmm.
I like to show fortune tellers, for instance, because that heritage has been going on for thousands of years, arguably.
Mm-hmm.
Again, there's so much storytelling in there. That's just the tip of the iceberg as far as the fortune tellers go. But the
Mm-hmm.
whole story behind why people use that as a service, why it's how many different variations of fortune telling there are in this city is quite astonishing, as well as all the motifs that surround that. It's got a little bit of voodoo in it. It's got a little bit of mysticism. All of these kind of things that are you could take it on face value as pantomime, or
Mm-hmm.
you could go thousands of years into prehistory to explain it all.
Right,
And
right.
then you're also showcasing all those traditions as well. So they're the kind of things that I want to photograph, and it can be difficult to do that sometimes. So I wander the streets looking for these stories that I can expose with my photography, as well as it being good for me.
Right, right. Well, that was beautifully said. Dickie Suzuki, look, I these hours go by very quickly. Thank you so much for this amazing tour of your Hong Kong. Yeah, I love seeing how people photograph, and yeah, your images are great.
Thank you for taking the time and listening to my drivel.
For sharing.
It's
Thank you for sharing. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay, so have a really good one.
Hope to see you at my show at some point.
For sure.
Take care. Bye bye.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.